lot of people have been talking noise about the Big Red. When Raiola slings it, you get on your feet, and I want 4 quarters of smash mouth football!
Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning in to Big Red Radio, Husker Talk Show. I am your host, Caleb Jennerette. Next to me is my co-host, Zach Jennerette. We're going to break down the schedule today. We're going to do our schedule predictions, and we're going to get into it. It's been a while, obviously, long off season, but we're getting back into it, hopefully doing weekly shows up until the season and then during the season as well, previewing the next matchup. But before we get straight into it, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Big Red Radio, all in the description below as well. Zach, how you doing?
Good. I can't remember if this is season 3 or season 4. I believe season 4.
Yeah.
Season 4. So season 4, episode 1.
Yeah.
Where we're at. Right. So been a long ride. Yeah. So we started last year of Frost. And then into
we started as not a Nebraska-centric podcast show, and then we switched to that, and it was, I think, maybe the year before, or it was Frost last year.
Frost last year, Mickey Joseph.
Yeah.
So now we have year 3 of Rhule, and season 4, episode 1.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited, and I think we've never taken an off-season break like we did this year, but I think it worked for us. I think we're ready to get back into it. I didn't want to, you never want to put out content that you're not proud of, and I feel like if we just would have forced some topics that we didn't really care about, it wouldn't have been as good, and the risk of burnout after that is high as well. So yeah. Already mentioned it, but make sure you follow us all in the socials in the description below, and that's where you're going to get all the extra content that we post, all the short clips of this show that we post as well. But yeah, getting into the schedule, talking just generally at first before we get into game-by-game predictions, it's as easy of a schedule you're going to get in the Big Ten. I think Nebraska has one game that they're for sure not going to be favored in. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that I think for sure they will be favored in. And then 4 games where right now I'm at a 50-50. I'm not high on some of these teams. I'll just say it right now, for Minnesota is not I think Nebraska is a lot more talented than Minnesota, but it's at Minnesota, and also PJ Fleck always has a good team, and Nebraska always has a tough time beating Minnesota. And then I think Nebraska is a lot better than Iowa at the end of the year, but obviously we know what happens with the Iowa game every single year. You might as well be at 50-50, but it's in Lincoln, so that and we'll get to it as well. But what are your thoughts on the schedule just in its entirety?
Yeah, I think it's the best shot in the best year, right? So obviously you have year 3 of Rhule. He's done it at Temple. He's done it at Baylor. As far as huge jumps in year 3, and then you obviously get a very favorable schedule to do it with. Plus, you get some key transfers in places you need in the receiving core, O-line, refilling that pass rush, right, the secondary. And so I think you get the people in there, and you keep the people around that you need, right? So Emmett Johnson, obviously, Raiola being back, and obviously key pieces on the defense as well. So everything looks kind of like it should fall in place.
Yeah, and we'll get. I think next week we're gonna do more of a depth chart prediction or a roster breakdown more so. So we're not gonna dive too deep into that this week. But I agree with you. I like where the roster's at, and also it's if not now, when? Right. And this is the best chance you're gonna get. No Ohio State, no Oregon. All your 50-50 games except for one, which I have. As 50-50 games are at home, Minnesota being the only one away, and it lines up perfectly with what you want. So just jumping in to the first game, Cincinnati, I think it's in Arrowhead. Nebraska's technically the away team, but that's going to be majority Nebraska fans in Arrowhead. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for Cincinnati. I think Nebraska's just bigger, stronger, faster. I do worry a little bit. Cincinnati wants to run the ball, and they have a really good D-line. So up front, I like our offensive line. Defensive line has a lot of questions. Obviously, replacing Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher, I like the people that we have up there right now, but it's just hard to tell because a lot of them just have never really played. But I'm going to start off with a win against Cincinnati. I think Nebraska's favored by 6.5 right now, and I think Nebraska has the talent to cover that. But first week, Matt Rhule mentioned it earlier this week. Just sloppiness can happen. So I think that I'm confident Nebraska wins the game. I'm not super confident they cover the current spread, but I could definitely see it either way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a game where you got some pieces that you got to kind of fit into that live game setting. Obviously, some transfers that haven't played a live game with each other yet. They have to fit in there. But I also think that I think Nebraska's just flat out better than Cincinnati, and they're going to play really well in a favorable environment. I think this game looks like one where it's like Nebraska's never really in fear of losing the game, but I don't think it's going to be like a blowout or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're looking like a 24-14 kind of win here.
Right. And I think, I'm really high on Nebraska's offense this year with Dana Holgorsen, which we'll talk about more in future episodes. I just have a hard time believing that Cincinnati can stop Nebraska very many times. Maybe early, just because still getting the feet under them, and Cincinnati's got a veteran-led defensive line, so if they can stop the run, I think early Nebraska's have some troubles, but we'll break that down more in depth once the week comes. But we both agree Nebraska gets that win. And before I go any further, I do want to mention these, I don't want to act like I'm not biased. I'm obviously biased. All we read about is how good this team is. We try to take it with a grain of salt because every single year, the off-season champs, it always happens. But I am very high on this team. I'm very high on this team, and I think they're going to do good things, and you'll see it as we go on. So Akron and Houston Christian, feel like we don't even need to talk about. That's 2 wins, and if we lose one of those games, what are we even talking about anymore? Because those are probably some of the easiest non-conference games you can get. I assume that you have wins there as well.
Yeah, Akron I think might be the worst team in college football.
Right.
And then for some reason Houston Christian is probably worse than them. And so
yeah, Houston Christian, not even an FBS team. They had a guy that got drafted a couple years ago, Jalix Hunt, who ended up going to the Eagles. But yeah, they're not even. I think our small high school stadium fits more than their college stadium. So not too worried about that. What I will say about Akron and Houston Christian is those are good momentum builders, especially at home for the next, I think, the biggest game of the year, hosting Michigan that next week, coming off Houston Christian. Might as well be a bye week. You're going to hopefully be healthy coming out of that. Michigan will have played Oklahoma at that point. Probably will already have a loss. I'm not very high on Michigan. But this is my first 50-50 game. As I just said, I'm not very high on Michigan. I'm not very high on Sharon Moore for sure. And Sharon Moore's not even coaching in this game. So I think Michigan's going to be at a big-time disadvantage with an already what looks to be rough offense, and then throwing a freshman quarterback in there. He's going to be coming into a hostile environment. He will have gone to Norman already, so he'll have kind of a taste of it, but I don't think it's going to get any better coming to Nebraska. I think Nebraska's going to force him to make some mistakes. I do think Michigan is obviously very talented, just as talented as Nebraska, if not more, in a lot of places. But I think Nebraska, with an experienced quarterback now, a really good head coach in Matt Rhule, Dana Holgorsen obviously running the show. Michigan did lose a lot on defense. They do have some talent to fill in the gaps, but I just think there's going to be a lot of new on this team. And if you want to play Michigan, you want to play them earlier. If you're going to play Michigan, you want to play them earlier in the year to kind of catch them at the right time. So I have Nebraska winning this game against Michigan. I think it's going to be close. I think Michigan's probably going to come in favored by 1.5 points, maybe 2 points, 2.5. Maybe Nebraska shocks, comes in favored, depending on what Michigan looks like earlier in the year. But I think Nebraska wins this game, and that kind of sends them in the right trajectory, as you'll see going on.
Yeah, I think if this environment is anything like the Colorado environment last year, it's going to be trouble for Michigan. Down their head coach, freshman quarterback, like you said, already a struggling offense. But at the same time, I mean, you can always count on that Michigan defense to be stout out there. It's something that Nebraska has definitely struggled against in years past, is not being able to like find a way through those like stout defenses, like not finding a crease here, not finding a crease there. Like, it seems like everything they do, they always get shut down. If they're going to win, which I will put them down as a win, it's going to be a gritty, I think, like low scoring one. 17-10, 17-13 kind of win. Would have loved for this game to be at night, but 2:30 works.
Especially at home.
Yeah, 2:30 works at home. Like I said, if that environment's anything like the Colorado environment I went to last year, it's very, very – I mean, Travis Hunter said it's very, very hard to play in something like that. That's, why you look at like a guy like Shedeur, who didn't make a whole lot of terrible decisions throwing the ball last year, probably made one of the worst decisions he could, throwing that pick six to Tommy Hill. Like, it's loud in there, like it's hostile, and you throw a freshman in there that hasn't really done it yet.
Yeah,
like he's gonna make some as well.
Yeah, and especially I think Michigan's going to do all they can to make it easy on him. And that's if they start him right away. I think by Nebraska, he'll be playing a lot, if not starting. But I think they're going to try to make it easy for him. They're going to try to run the ball. And like I said, I'm high on Nebraska's front seven. I think their linebackers are some of the best in the Big Ten. I think Deshaun Singleton can come down and make some big plays. And obviously I think the D-line can make some plays as well with Keona Davis and Williams Neri and Riley Van Poppel all making plays up front. So I think I think Nebraska wins that game against Michigan. And then next week is a game, it's your classic, trap game. Luckily, we get a bye week in between. So Michigan, bye week, then you host Michigan State once again in Lincoln. I think Nebraska wins this game. I just don't think Michigan State's there yet. I think they're in the middle of a very, long-term rebuild. I do like their quarterback. I do like their head coach, but just where it matters, I think, offensive line, defensive line, just bodies. Like, I just don't think they have the bodies to match up with Nebraska. I could see it being close, but I think Nebraska wins this game in home before they start their 2-week road trip.
Yeah, I agree. If there wasn't a bye week in between, this game would scare me a lot. Because Michigan State is that team that can't always be the one that, it's kind of like that Purdue is where, like, a team's doing really well, like, Purdue's going to knock them off. Same thing with Michigan State. Team's doing really hot, look out for Michigan State if you got them coming in. But I think that bye week is a good one to regroup, plus you get them at home. So I think they win this one as well.
Yeah. And moving on, at Maryland, first road trip in the Big Ten. First road trip in the Big Ten because they're counting the Arrowhead game. But if you're going to travel anywhere, you probably want to travel to Maryland in the Big Ten. Not a very hostile environment. I think Nebraska wins there. Maryland's going to start a true freshman at QB who could be good. They have a lot of hope for him, but I don't think anything's really going to be around him to help him out. And I think he's going to be running around a lot. So I think Nebraska wins that game. And I think it's pretty handily. And at this point, Nebraska's, riding high, sitting at 6-0. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the one to do it and start that 6-0. I guess I don't know when the last time we started 6-0 was. Probably been a while.
5-1.
Yeah, I think if you got to travel anywhere, like you said, you'd want to travel to Maryland in a small stadium, not super hostile, not super hard. It's not cold yet, right? So I think it'll be a good game. I think we should win it pretty handily.
Yeah, and this next game freaks me out for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, Minnesota, I think they're going to be a talented team. They're also starting a true freshman at quarterback probably. But really, what really scares me is it's a short week. So Saturday in Maryland, travel back to Lincoln, travel to Minnesota. We have a Friday game. It's a night game. against Minnesota in Minnesota. So this game scares me. This is the first game besides Michigan that I think, I'd be worried going into it. I think Nebraska at this point, 6-0 would probably be favored, but not by that much. And if it is by a lot, I definitely don't think they cover. I'm really torn because if I choose Nebraska to win this game, there's not a lot more games that I can choose them to lose. And I'm just going to dive all the way in. I think Nebraska wins this game. I think it's very close. I think this is the game where people are like, okay, close losses aren't a thing anymore. Like, this is Matt Rhule has changed the culture. He's perfected the little things. Nebraska does things right down the stretch. Nebraska closes out the game. And if Minnesota was starting an experienced guy at quarterback, I would probably pick Minnesota in this game. But knowing it's going to be close, knowing it's going to take a few plays to win this game, I trust Dylan Raiola more than Minnesota's true freshman quarterback.
Yeah, if you just look at the history of Friday night games, I think the week 0 game of Matt Rhule year 1 was against Minnesota, and I think that was a Friday night game. Last year's Illinois Friday night game. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of ways to look at all these Friday night games that we've played, and we seem to never come out on top. Right. I think I am gonna pick Minnesota to take this one. It just seems like it's the perfect storm for it to happen.
Right.
Not to say I don't think Nebraska can, but I think this is one where you slip up. As much as I would love to say Nebraska can flip from slipping up in every game like this to slipping up in no games like this. I just don't think it happens. I think they slip up in this one. Not to say that in the future they aren't going to win ones like this, but I think it might take another year. But yeah, 6-1 right now. I don't think that's bad at all.
Yeah. So you're at 6-1. I'm at 7-0. Moving on to Northwestern, back home. Whether we win or lose at Minnesota could change this game drastically. I think this is a perfect trap game. I think Northwestern's going to be okay this year, but I can definitely see them being actually terrible. I actually don't know what I predicted them. I put out my Big Ten predictions a few weeks ago. I might have predicted them to be really bad, but I think Nebraska wins this game. I think they win it closer than they should. Preston Stone at quarterback, I think, is talented enough to make some plays. And then coming off a big win in my prediction at Minnesota, short week, or no, you get a long week because you played on Friday. So yeah, I think Nebraska wins this game close.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one that looks like the Rutgers game of last year, where it's one that you're always in the driver's seat, but it just seems like you can't find a way to really gain that edge and really pull away on the scoreboard, but you always seem to be pulling away on the field. I think we win it. I think it's a pretty easy win, but it's one where hey, maybe we should have won that one by a lot more.
Yeah. Next one, in Lincoln, hosting USC. Now this one, I'm going to come out. I think Nebraska's going to win this game, and I think they're going to win this game for a couple different reasons. USC, I think, is a more talented team. I think if this game was played early in the year, week 3 or 4, I think USC wins this game. The reason I think Nebraska wins this game is I don't have any faith in Lincoln Riley this year. I think things are going to go south. I think his big time recruiting class is going to start to fall apart. I think vibes are just bad, as a lot of people have said, at USC. And at this point, only 3 weeks left in the year after this game, I think a lot of players have probably checked out, especially you're playing in November in Lincoln, coming from LA. It's going to be cold. It's going to be chilly. I think Nebraska wins this game. I think it's close, but I think Nebraska just leans on them. I think they're more ready for it, and they have more motivation to win this game than USC does.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one game we should have won last year, and that was in LA. I think you bring them to Lincoln, plus we're a year better. I think we win this one. I think it's going to be one of those games, especially in November, where it's hey, who's got the better team in the trenches and who can run the ball and stop the run better? And I think every day that's us. So I think that's how this game is going to be won.
Yeah, and I do like USC's personnel. I'm not sold on their quarterback. I think their D coordinator I think is really good, and I think their defense is going to be improved. But like I said, I just think they've checked out at this point. And a lot of what you've heard about USC's players, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are there, collecting a check. If things go well, I'm sure they will be motivated. But like you saw with Florida State last year, I think if things go poorly, everybody could just flip in the locker room. So I'm predicting USC to kind of have an off year a little bit. So I think Nebraska wins that game. Traveling to UCLA, that's a long trip. I think Nebraska wins this game. Not high on UCLA. Kind of the same thing as USC. I think there could be a lot of quit factor. I'm not high on their head coach. I think, he's a very good motivator, and a lot of the players like playing for him. I just don't think, as a head coach, I have much faith in him. So I think Nebraska wins that game with revenge also from last year. I think they're going to be motivated to win it as well.
Yeah, I think this one looks like kind of like the Minnesota game to me, where it's like, one where you definitely could lose, but definitely could win. I think it goes opposite of that Minnesota game in my eyes. I think we win, but let's also not forget that UCLA does have Nico, right? And he's a very, very talented quarterback. And especially in LA, I mean, he can do a lot with the people around him. So I think it's a little closer than people think it'll be, but I do think this is that one where when you were talking about, like, okay, like these guys have changed, like they'll do the right things late, like they'll do the little things to win the close games. Like this is that game for me, right? So I think this is the one where you really right the ship.
Yeah, and what really convinces me for UCLA is, you mentioned it, Nico is really talented, but he came over in the spring. So that's a quick turnaround to learn the system, learn the playbook, and it's a new OC at UCLA coming over from Indiana. I like him, but just turning over from spring that quick, already everybody else is still learning the playbook as well. I think it's going to be a lot. I think it's going to be a big learning curve, and I wouldn't be surprised if Nico underperformed. He wasn't super impressive last year. We know he has it in him. We know he has the talent. He's a really good prospect if you're looking at it in that term, but I think he still has a lot of maturing to do and a lot of good play ahead of him, but not against Nebraska, not in that game. So I have Nebraska at, let's count. So I got 1, 2, 3.
I have them at 11 6, 7,
or 8, 9, 10. I have Nebraska at 10-0 right now.
10-0.
Which is it's it's crazy to hear that, and I'm buying in completely on Matt Rhule year 3, and also just look at the schedule. Nebraska could easily be favored in 11 games this year.
I think they could have 3 losses though right now.
Sure, absolutely.
I think you could have a Michigan loss, a Minnesota loss, and a USC loss.
Absolutely, there could be more losses. Depending on you lose Michigan, then turn around after a bye week, lose to Michigan State. I don't think you'll lose to Maryland, but that could unravel like quickly. I think Matt Rhule's got the culture in a good spot where it won't, but I could definitely see 3 or 4 losses at this point as well. But I'm predicting, as I said, I'm not hiding from it. I'm completely biased, but I do think there's a very good chance that Nebraska could have 1, 2, even 0 losses at this point as well. So bye week going to Penn State, this is the first loss that I have predicted, but I don't want to sign it off saying that Nebraska is just going to get destroyed in this game. I think Nebraska can compete in this game. You remember last year, Nebraska had every chance to beat the eventual national champions in Ohio State. Like, they had the ball driving down the field with a chance to score and take the lead late in that game. So I think Nebraska could make this game interesting, but I think Penn State at almost every single position is more talented. So I just think Penn State wins in that way. But I think it's close. I think Penn State's probably favored by 10.5, maybe 14.5, depending on where it goes. If they're both undefeated, maybe it's less than 10, but I think Penn State wins by, 1 score, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Penn State is realistically a top 3 team in the country, and
right. I don't think it looks as bad as Indiana did last year, but I think it looks like I guess I forget. It looks like one where we're just like
UCLA, like
USC, right? UCLA, like
yeah,
it just seems like you're just never in the fight kind of thing.
Yeah.
And kind of like that. I think that's how it's gonna play out. But it's gonna be one where it's like, hey, like that's a really good team, but to know that we're right there is gonna be good too.
Yeah. So then coming back home to Lincoln, Iowa, Black Friday. I think Nebraska takes this game. I think Nebraska wins at home against Iowa for the first time since 2011. I'm not high on Iowa at all this year. I think they win. I don't think they make a bowl. I think they win. I could see them making a bowl. I could see them going 4-8, 5-7, 6-6, right in that range. Everybody's high on their quarterback. I'm not sold. I mean, this guy, he's coming from the FCS, but he's not some prolific, like, game-changing passer. And if you're going to come into the big leagues and you're going to do that, you got to be like a Cam Ward. You got to come from those FCS and have the arm talent to do those kind of things. I think he'll be an upgrade. I think he'll be their best guy in a few years, looking back. But I just think the talent around them is also falling off. Their entire offense last year was Caleb Johnson. He's gone. They have to replace him now. Not saying they can't have a good running game, but it's just not going to be what it was last year. So I think Nebraska wins that game. If it was any other team with the same roster and it was just not Iowa, I would be way more confident. But as we've seen, Nebraska dominated Iowa last year and still found a way to lose the game. So anything can happen, but I think Nebraska wins this game. I think I have them finishing 11-1. I don't know if that puts them in the conference championship or not, but what do you think about the Iowa game?
Yeah, I think they win. I think it's. I hope it looks like the year where Casey Thompson beat them.
Oh.
Or just like they just weren't good enough, right? Like Iowa just wasn't good enough to compete. And I think you look at like Dylan Raiola with Dane Key, looks a lot like Casey Thompson with Trey Palmer. Plus, you have a better O line, better defense, really good running back, and a better coach, right? And so I think it's got all the pieces. I think Gronowski he is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's gonna be what everyone thinks he is. But yeah, I think it'll be close, like it always is. But yeah, I think they win here.
Yeah. So I have them 11-1. You have them at 10-2. Is that right? Because you have them dropping at Minnesota. I have them dropping at Penn State. Obviously, we're both very high on Nebraska this year. A lot of people are actually jumping on to being high on Nebraska, which worries me because if Nebraska comes out and fumbles, in week 4 against Michigan, everyone's going to jump off the train. But I do think Nebraska has everything, and I think this is the year to put it together. I think this is the year Matt Rhule's been looking at since he took the job. Like, his guys are here. His culture's here. The schedule sets up for a really good run, especially early in the schedule. If you beat Michigan, that's a really big momentum, and you could take that into Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern. You could take that far, and I think I don't want to say Nebraska's back because I don't even know what that really means, but at 11-1 in the conference title game, Nebraska would make the playoffs with me. I assume at 10-2, even if they don't make the playoff or the conference championship game, I assume they would still be really close, if not automatically in there. A 10-2 Big Ten team would just be hard to keep out. I would have them losing in the conference championship. If it's Penn State, Ohio State, or Oregon, I think those teams are all just way more talented than Nebraska at this point. If it was Oregon, I would have more faith, just because I think they're the least talented out of those 3. But yeah, I don't think Nebraska's going to win the conference or anything, but I think they can have a really, really big-time year. And obviously, 11-1, 11-2 after the conference championship, I think, would just – the hype train would be at an all-time high.
Yeah, I mean, 10-2 is what I have them at, but I could see him at 9-3. I could see him at 8-4. I don't think I could see him much lower than that, though.
Yeah, like 8-4. 8-4 would feel good, but anything lower than that, it would kind of be like, okay, like,
right.
What is this shaping up to be?
Right. Yeah, I think anything lower than 8-4 is just not. It's a very bad year. But I think 9-3, 10-2 is where like I could see them at. kind of a 50-50 draw from there. Now, where those 2 losses come from, I can probably pick one. That other one, I just don't know.
Yeah. And if I'm playing the odds game, odds are between Minnesota, USC, and Michigan, we probably lose one of those games.
Right, you got to drop one, right? I mean,
but
I would love to say that you win them all.
Winning all of them, but yeah. I mean, realistically, yes, between Michigan, Minnesota, and USC, one of them's probably going to be a loss. But I just like the way each of them sets up as well. Like, you're going into Michigan just playing 2 really bad teams. You know, have a bye week in front of you so you can go all out. You can throw everything you have at them. Minnesota, that's the one where I'm like, I could see a loss. Like, wouldn't be surprised, but then you just go back to the freshman quarterback that Minnesota has. I think John Butler's going to do enough to confuse him and make him make a few mistakes. USC, I think at that point, I don't have enough trust in Lincoln Riley to still have that team fighting for something, especially with how we saw it happen last year. Yes, they beat Nebraska, but just late in the year, they just kept falling off and kept blowing games all throughout the year, really. And then Iowa, I think Nebraska's just way more talented, and with all the losses that Nebraska's taken over the last 10 years, I think they're going to be motivated, and I think they're going to really want to win that game. And I think at that point as well, Iowa's going to be either out of a bowl, or I guess they could be fighting for a bowl still, but I think they're going to be pretty down bad. So that's going to do it for our schedule prediction. Make sure, as well, as I said before, subscribe, leave a like, hit the bell, comment down below your game that you're most excited for, if you're going to a game, or even if not, what game you're most excited to watch. Make sure you follow us on the socials, linked down below: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. And yeah, Zach, you got anything else?
Nope, that's all I got.
All right, next week we will be back. I don't know what we're doing yet, whether it's bold predictions or a roster depth chart breakdown. But we'll see you guys next week. Go Big Red.